The emergency room was buzzing with activity as the first rays of dawn peeked through the hospital windows. Emma Collins, a dedicated nurse, leaned against the counter, exhaustion etched into her features. Her shift had been grueling, filled with endless patients and emergencies, but she had grown used to it. For Emma, there was no room for complaints. She had a 4-year-old son, Lucas, waiting for her at home, and he was her entire world. Emma glanced at the clock. It was 6 a.m. She sighed, pulling her hair into a loose ponytail as she prepared to leave. Her coworkers often teased her about how she never seemed to rest, but they didn't know the full story. They didn't know about the sacrifices she had made, the dreams she had given up, or the nights she spent worrying about Lucas's health. Lucas was a bright, curious boy with a smile that could light up the darkest room, but he had been born with severe asthma, a condition that required constant care and expensive medication. Emma had once dreamed of becoming a doctor, but when she found out she was pregnant during her final year of medical school, everything changed. She chose to keep her baby, even if it meant giving up her career. As Emma walked out of the hospital, the cool morning air hit her face. She clutched her bag tightly, her mind already racing with the day ahead. Lucas would be awake soon, and she needed to prepare breakfast, check his medication, and get him ready for preschool. At their small apartment, Lucas was still asleep, his tiny body curled up under a blanket. Emma stood in the doorway of his room, watching him for a moment. His chest rose and fell steadily. But she couldn't help but worry. Every breath he took was a reminder of the battles they had fought together. "Mommy?" Lucas's soft voice broke her thoughts. He rubbed his eyes and smiled at her. "Good morning, sweetheart," Emma said, walking over to kiss his forehead. "Did you save people last night?" he asked, his eyes wide with curiosity. Emma chuckled. "I tried my best, but you know what? You're my favorite person to take care of." Lucas giggled, wrapping his arms around her neck. "You're my angel, Mommy." Her heart swelled at his words. Lucas had a way of making her feel like all the sacrifices were worth it. Later that morning, as Emma prepared Lucas's breakfast, her phone buzzed on the counter. She picked it up, her face falling as she read the message. "Emma, I'm so sorry, but I can't watch Lucas today. Something urgent came up." It was the babysitter. Emma's stomach tightened. She had a meeting at the hospital later that morning, and there was no one else she could call. Her family lived in another state, and her friends were all busy with their own lives. "Mommy, what's wrong?" Lucas asked, sensing her distress. Emma forced a smile. "Nothing, sweetheart. We're just going to have a little adventure today." By 9 a.m., Emma was back at the hospital, holding Lucas's hand tightly as they walked through the bustling lobby. She had no choice but to bring him with her. "Stay close to me, okay?" she whispered to Lucas. The hospital was a world of its own. Doctors and nurses rushing past, patients waiting anxiously, and the faint hum of machines in the background. Emma felt a wave of anxiety. Children weren't allowed in certain areas, and she could only hope no one would notice Lucas. As they stepped into the elevator, Emma's heart raced. She prayed silently that the meeting would be quick and that Lucas would stay quiet. But fate had other plans. The elevator doors opened, and standing there was Alexander Pierce, the CEO of Pierce Medical Group. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, and carried an air of authority that made everyone around him stand a little straighter. Emma froze. She hadn't seen Alex in years, not since that night at the medical conference 5 years ago. Her heart pounded as their eyes met, but she quickly looked away, hoping he wouldn't recognize her. "Good morning," Alex said, his voice calm but commanding. "Good morning," Emma replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas, however, had other ideas. He tugged on Emma's hand and looked up at Alex with wide eyes. "Are you a doctor?" Lucas asked innocently. Alex glanced down, his expression softening slightly. "Not exactly. I run the hospital." Lucas's eyes lit up. "Wow, you must be really smart." Emma felt her cheeks flush. "Lucas, let's not bother the nice man." But before she could say anything else, Lucas suddenly coughed a deep, wheezing sound that made Emma's heart drop. "Lucas," she exclaimed, kneeling down to check on him. Alex immediately stepped forward, his sharp eyes assessing the situation. Is he asthmatic? Emma nodded, panic rising in her chest. Yes, but I forgot his inhaler at home. Without hesitation, Alex pulled out his phone and called for a nurse. Bring a nebulizer to the elevator, now. Within minutes, Lucas was receiving treatment, his breathing slowly stabilizing. Emma held his hand tightly, tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she whispered to Alex, her voice trembling. Alex looked at her, his expression unreadable. It's what anyone would do. But as he watched Emma comfort her son, something stirred inside him. A memory, a connection he couldn't quite place. And in that moment, the wheels of fate began to turn. Lucas sat on Emma's lap in the hospital lounge, his breathing finally steady after the nebulizer treatment. Emma gently stroked his hair, her heart still racing from the scare. She glanced at her watch. She was already late for the meeting. Poor boy. Mommy, I'm okay now, Lucas said softly, his small hand reaching up to touch her cheek. Emma smiled, though her eyes were still filled with worry. I know, sweetheart. You're so brave. Just as she was about to stand up, a deep voice interrupted her thoughts. Is he feeling better now? Emma turned to see Alex standing a few feet away, his hands in his pockets. His sharp, commanding presence seemed to fill the room, but his expression was softer now, almost concerned. Yes, thank you, Emma replied, her voice steady but guarded. I don't know what I would have done without your help. Alex nodded, his gaze shifting to Lucas. He's a strong little guy, but asthma can be unpredictable. You should always have his inhaler with you. Emma felt a pang of guilt. I know. It was a mistake. I was in a rush this morning and— It's okay, Alex interrupted, his tone gentler now. I wasn't trying to criticize, I've seen how dangerous it can be. For a moment their eyes met, and Emma felt a flicker of something she hadn't felt in years. Recognition, familiarity, and a strange sense of vulnerability. She quickly looked away, focusing on Lucas instead. Thank you again, Mr. Pierce, she said, standing up and adjusting Lucas in her arms. We should get going. But before she could leave, Lucas tugged on her sleeve. Mommy, wait, he said, then turned to Alex. Thank you for saving me, Mr. Angel. Alex raised an eyebrow, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. Mr. Angel? Lucas nodded enthusiastically. Mommy says angels save people, and you saved me, so you're an angel. Emma's cheeks flushed. Lucas, that's enough. Let's go. But Alex crouched down to Lucas's level, his smile softening. Well, I'm not an angel, but I'm glad I could help. Lucas grinned, clearly satisfied with the answer. You're still my angel. Emma felt her heart tighten. Lucas had always been so open and trusting, but she couldn't shake the feeling that this moment was more significant than it seemed. As Emma walked away, Alex watched her go, his mind racing. There was something about her, something familiar. He couldn't quite place it, but the way she had looked at him, the way her voice trembled when she thanked him, it stirred a memory he thought he had buried long ago. Emma Collins, he murmured to himself, the name finally clicking in his mind. He remembered her now. 5 years ago, at a medical conference in Boston, they had met by chance. She had been a bright, ambitious medical student, and he had been a guest speaker. They had spent hours talking about their dreams, their passions, and their shared desire to make a difference in the world. And then there was that night. The night they had shared a connection so deep, it had left an indelible mark on him. But when he woke up the next morning, she was gone, leaving only a note that said, I'm sorry. Alex had tried to move on, burying himself in his work and building his empire. But now, seeing her again, with a child who looked so much like him, he shook his head, trying to push the thought away. It couldn't be. Meanwhile, Emma hurried down the hallway, clutching Lucas tightly. Her mind was spinning. She hadn't expected to see Alex Pierce again, not after all these years. She had done everything she could to keep her past buried, to protect Lucas from the truth, But now, with Alex back in her life, she wasn't sure how long she could keep the secret. "Mommy, who was that man?" Lucas asked, his voice curious. Emma hesitated, her grip tightening on his hand. "Just someone who works at the hospital, sweetheart, that's all." Lucas frowned. "But he was nice, and he saved me." Emma forced a smile. "Yes, he was very nice, but we don't need to bother him anymore, okay?" Lucas nodded, though he didn't seem entirely convinced. Later that day, Alex sat in his office staring at his computer screen. He had pulled up Emma's employee file, his curiosity getting the better of him. "Emma Collins," he read aloud. "Nurse, single mother, joined the hospital 3 years ago." His eyes lingered on the words, single mother. He couldn't ignore the nagging feeling in his chest. The resemblance between Lucas and himself was too strong to be a coincidence. He leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. If Lucas was his son, why hadn't Emma told him? Why had she disappeared without a word? Alex knew he needed answers, but more than that, he needed to know if the connection he had felt with Emma all those years ago was still there. That evening, Emma sat on the couch with Lucas, reading him his favorite bedtime story, but her mind was elsewhere, replaying the events of the day. "Mommy?" Lucas said, interrupting her thoughts. "Yes, sweetheart? Do you think angels are real?" Emma smiled, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "I think angels are people who care about us and help us when we need it most." Lucas nodded thoughtfully. "Like Mr. Angel?" Emma's smile faltered. "Maybe. But let's not think about him too much, okay? It's just you and me, Lucas. That's all we need." Lucas snuggled closer to her, his small hand clutching hers. "I love you, Mommy." "I love you too, baby," Emma whispered, kissing the top of his head. But as she held him close, she couldn't shake the feeling that their little world was about to change forever. The next morning, Emma arrived at the hospital with Lucas, her heart heavy with unease. She had no choice but to bring him again. Her babysitter was still unavailable, and she couldn't afford to miss another shift. "Mommy, can I see Mr. Angel again?" Lucas asked as they walked through the hospital lobby. Emma froze for a moment, her grip tightening on his hand. "Lucas, we talked about this. Mr. Angel is very busy and we shouldn't bother him." Lucas pouted but didn't argue. Emma sighed, trying to push the thought of Alex out of her mind. She had spent the entire night replaying their encounter, her emotions swinging between fear and longing. She couldn't let him find out the truth. Meanwhile, Alex was in his office, staring at a photo of Lucas he had discreetly taken from the hospital's security footage. The resemblance was undeniable. The same dark hair, the same piercing eyes. He leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. If Lucas was his son, why had Emma kept him a secret? Why had she disappeared all those years ago? "Mr. Pierce?" His assistant's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Yes," Alex said, quickly closing the file on his computer. "There's a staff meeting in 10 minutes. Nurse Collins will be presenting the new patient care protocols." Alex's heart skipped a beat. "Thank you. I'll be there." The meeting room was already filled with staff when Emma walked in, Lucas holding her hand tightly. She had hoped to leave him in the break room with some coloring books, but he had insisted on staying with her. As she set up her presentation, the door opened, and Alex walked in. Emma's breath caught in her throat. He was impossible to ignore. His presence commanded attention, and the room seemed to quiet as he took his seat at the head of the table. Emma avoided his gaze, focusing on her notes, but as she began her presentation, she could feel his eyes on her, sharp and unrelenting. Lucas, sitting quietly in the corner, suddenly spoke up. "Mommy, you're so smart." The room erupted in soft laughter, and Emma's cheeks flushed. "Thank you, Lucas. Now let Mommy finish, okay?" Alex's lips twitched into a small smile, but his mind was elsewhere. He couldn't stop staring at Lucas, the boy's innocent voice tugging at something deep inside him. After the meeting, Alex approached Emma as she packed up her things. "Emma," he said, his voice low but firm. She froze, her back to him. "Yes, Mr. Pierce?" Can we talk privately? Emma turned to face him, her expression guarded. I don't think that's necessary. Alex's eyes narrowed. I think it is. Before she could respond, Lucas tugged on her sleeve. Mommy, I'm hungry. Emma seized the opportunity. I need to take Lucas to lunch, excuse me? But as she tried to walk away, Alex stepped in front of her, his gaze locking onto hers. Emma, this isn't over. Later that afternoon, Alex sat in his office, his frustration mounting. He couldn't let this go. He needed answers. He picked up his phone and called his private investigator. I need you to look into someone for me. Emma Collins and her son, Lucas. That evening, Emma sat on the couch with Lucas, trying to focus on his bedtime story. But her mind was elsewhere, consumed by the fear that Alex was getting too close to the truth. Mommy, Lucas said, interrupting her thoughts. Yes, sweetheart. Well, don't I have a daddy? Emma's heart sank. She had always known this question would come, but she wasn't prepared for it. You do have a daddy, Lucas, she said softly. He's just not here right now. Where is he? Lucas asked, his eyes wide with curiosity. Emma hesitated, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. It's complicated, baby. But you have me, and I love you more than anything in the world. That's all that matters. Lucas nodded, though he didn't seem entirely satisfied with her answer. The next day, Alex received the investigator's report. As he read through the file, his suspicions were confirmed. Lucas was born exactly 9 months after the night he and Emma had spent together. His hands trembled as he stared at the photo of Lucas in the report. There was no doubt in his mind now, Lucas was his son. But instead of feeling anger, Alex felt an overwhelming sense of regret. He had missed so much. Lucas's first steps, his first words, his first laugh. And Emma? She had carried this burden alone. He knew he needed to confront her, but he also knew he needed to tread carefully. That evening, Alex waited for Emma outside the hospital. When she walked out, holding Lucas's hand, he stepped forward. Emma, he said, his voice softer this time. Emma stopped, her eyes widening in surprise. Alex, what are you doing here? We need to talk, he said, glancing at Lucas. Please. Emma hesitated, but the look in Alex's eyes told her he wasn't going to back down. Lucas, why don't you play on the bench for a minute, she said, guiding him to a nearby seat. Once Lucas was out of earshot, Emma turned to Alex, her expression defensive. What do you want? I know, Emma, Alex said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. I know Lucas is my son. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She opened her mouth to deny it, but the look in Alex's eyes stopped her. How long were you planning to keep this from me? He asked, his voice breaking slightly. Emma looked away, tears streaming down her face. I didn't have a choice, Alex. You were building your empire, living your life. I didn't want to burden you. Broken me? Alex said, his voice rising. Emma, he's my son. I had a right to know. I was scared, Emma admitted, her voice trembling. I didn't know how to tell you. And then so much time passed and I thought it was better this way. Alex ran a hand through his hair, his emotions warring inside him. You should have told me, Emma. I've missed so much. Emma wiped her tears, her voice softening. I know, and I'm sorry, but Lucas is my whole world, Alex. I've done everything I can to protect him. Alex's expression softened as he looked at her. I don't want to take him away from you, Emma. I want to be a part of his life, please. Emma hesitated, her heart torn. She had spent so long protecting Lucas, but she couldn't deny that he deserved to know his father. Okay, she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. But we do this on my terms. Alex nodded, relief washing over him. Thank you. As they stood there, the weight of their shared past hanging between them, Lucas ran up to them, his face lit up with excitement. Mommy, Mr. Angel is here again, he said, grabbing Alex's hand. Emma and Alex exchanged a look, a silent understanding passing between them. This was only the beginning. The days following Alex's revelation were a mix of hope and unease for Emma. She had reluctantly allowed Alex to spend more time with Lucas, but the fear of what this new chapter might bring lingered in her heart. Lucas, however, was thrilled. He adored Alex, calling him Mr. Angel, and clinging to him with the kind of trust only a child could give. One evening, Alex invited Emma and Lucas to dinner at a cozy family restaurant. Emma hesitated but eventually agreed, knowing it was important for Lucas to bond with his father. As they sat at the table, Lucas was his usual lively self, talking about his day at preschool and showing off his drawings. Alex listened intently, his eyes soft with affection. "Mommy says I'm really good at drawing," Lucas said proudly, holding up a picture of a superhero. "She's right," Alex replied, smiling. "You're amazing, buddy. Maybe one day you'll be an artist." Emma watched the interaction, her heart conflicted. She had spent so many years protecting Lucas from the truth. But seeing him with Alex now, she couldn't deny how much Lucas needed this connection. But just as she began to feel a sense of peace, her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen and her stomach dropped. The message was from an unknown number. "You thought you could hide forever? Now it's my turn." Emma's hands trembled as she quickly locked the phone, forcing a smile for Lucas's sake. But Alex noticed the change in her expression. "Emma, is everything okay?" he asked, his voice low and concerned. She nodded quickly. "It's nothing, just a work message." But Alex wasn't convinced. He could see the fear in her eyes, and it unsettled him. The next day, Emma's worst nightmare came true. She had just finished her shift at the hospital when her phone rang. It was Lucas's preschool teacher, her voice frantic. "Mattress Collins, Lucas is missing," the teacher said, her words tumbling out in a rush. Emma's heart stopped. "What do you mean he's missing? He was supposed to be in class." "A man came to pick him up," the teacher explained, her voice shaking. "He said he was Lucas's father. He had all the right paperwork, so we let him take Lucas." Emma's blood ran cold. "What did he look like?" The teacher hesitated. "Tall, dark hair, wearing a suit. He said his name was Marcus Davidson." Emma's knees buckled and she clutched the wall for support. Marcus. She hadn't heard that name in years, but she would never forget him. He was a former business partner of Alex's, a man who had lost everything after a failed deal. And now he had taken her son. Emma didn't waste a second. She called Alex, her voice trembling with panic. "Alex, Lucas is gone," she said, barely able to get the words out. "What do you mean, gone?" Alex demanded, his voice sharp with urgency. "Marcus Davidson took him," Emma said, tears streaming down her face. "He pretended to be you and took Lucas from his school." There was a long pause on the other end of the line before Alex spoke, his voice cold and determined. "I'm coming to get you. Stay where you are." Within minutes, Alex arrived at the hospital, his car screeching to a halt in front of the entrance. Emma climbed in, her hands shaking. "We'll find him," Alex said, his voice steady but filled with fury. "I promise you, Emma, I won't let anything happen to him." Emma nodded, clutching her phone tightly. Why would Marcus do this? What does he want? Alex's jaw tightened. Revenge. He blames me for everything that went wrong in his life. He's been waiting for a chance to hurt me, and now he's using Lucas to do it. Emma's heart ached at the thought of Lucas being caught in the middle of this. "We have to find him, Alex. He's just a little boy. He must be so scared." Alex reached over and squeezed her hand. "We will. I won't stop until he's safe." Alex made a call to his security team, mobilizing every resource he had. Within an hour, they had tracked Marcus's location to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Emma's stomach churned as they pulled up to the building. The area was dark and desolate, the only sound the distant hum of traffic. "Stay in the car," Alex said firmly, his eyes blazing with determination. "Nibom," Emma said, her voice shaking but resolute. He's my son, I'm coming with you. Alex hesitated but finally nodded. Stay close to me. Inside the warehouse, the air was cold and heavy. Emma's heart pounded as they moved through the dimly lit space, her eyes darting around for any sign of Lucas. "Amani!" a small voice cried out, and Emma's heart leapt. "Lucas," she called, running toward the sound. But before she could reach him, Marcus stepped out of the shadows, holding Lucas tightly by the arm. "Not so fast," Marcus said, his voice dripping with malice. "Let him go, Marcus," Alex said, his voice calm but deadly. "This is between you and me. Leave the boy out of it." Marcus laughed bitterly. "You think you can just take everything from me and walk away? No. You're going to feel what it's like to lose everything." Emma stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Please, Marcus, he's just a child. He has nothing to do with this." Marcus's grip on Lucas tightened, and the boy whimpered. Emma's heart broke at the sound. "Let him go," Alex said again, his voice like steel. "You don't want to do this, Marcus." For a moment Marcus hesitated, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. But before he could make a move, Alex lunged at him, knocking him to the ground. Emma rushed forward, scooping Lucas into her arms as tears streamed down her face. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's here." Lucas clung to her, his small body trembling. "I was so scared, Mommy." "I know, sweetheart," Emma whispered, holding him tightly. "You're safe now." Alex pinned Marcus to the ground until the police arrived, his face a mask of fury. As the officers led Marcus away, Alex turned to Emma and Lucas, his expression softening. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice gentle. Emma nodded, tears still streaming down her face. "Thank you, Alex. You saved him." Alex crouched down to Lucas's level, his eyes filled with emotion. "Hey, buddy, you're the bravest kid I've ever met." Lucas smiled weakly, wrapping his arms around Alex's neck. "You're my hero, Mr. Angel." Alex hugged him tightly, his heart swelling with love. In that moment, he knew he would do anything to protect his son and the woman who had brought him into his life. The days after Lucas's rescue were a blur of relief and exhaustion for Emma. She couldn't stop replaying the moment she had held her son in her arms again, safe and sound. But the fear of what could have happened still lingered, haunting her every thought. Alex had stayed by her side through it all, ensuring that Marcus was taken into custody and that Lucas was protected. He had hired a private security team to watch over them, refusing to take any chances. "Emma, you don't have to do this alone anymore," Alex said one evening as they sat in her small apartment. Lucas was asleep in his room, clutching the stuffed bear Alex had bought him. Emma looked at Alex, her eyes filled with gratitude but also hesitation. "I've been doing it alone for so long, Alex. It's hard to let someone in." Alex leaned forward, his voice soft but firm. "I know you've been strong for Lucas, and I admire you for that. But he's my son too, Emma. I want to be here for both of you, not just as his father, but as someone you can rely on." Emma's heart ached at his words. She had spent so many years building walls around herself, afraid to let anyone in. But Alex's sincerity was undeniable, and for the first time in a long time, she felt the weight of her burdens begin to lift. The next morning, Alex surprised Lucas by taking him to the park. Emma watched from a distance as Alex pushed Lucas on the swings, the sound of her son's laughter filling the air. "Higher, Mr. Angel!" Lucas shouted, his face glowing with joy. Alex laughed, giving the swing another push. "You got it, buddy." Emma couldn't help but smile. Seeing Lucas so happy, so carefree, made her realize how much he had been missing. As they walked back to the car, Lucas held Alex's hand tightly. "Can we do this again tomorrow?" he asked, his eyes wide with hope. Alex crouched down to Lucas's level, his expression serious but kind. "I'll be here whenever you want, Lucas. I promise." Lucas grinned, throwing his arms around Alex's neck. "You're the best, Mr. Angel." Emma's heart swelled at the sight. For so long it had just been her and Lucas against the world. But now, she realized they didn't have to face it alone anymore. Over the next few weeks, Alex became a constant presence in their lives. He took Lucas to school, helped with his asthma treatments, and even learned how to make Lucas's favorite pancakes. One evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Lucas looked up at Alex with a thoughtful expression. "Mr. Angel," he said, his voice serious. "Yes, buddy," Alex replied, smiling. "Can I call you Daddy now?" The room fell silent, and Emma's breath caught in her throat. Alex's eyes softened, and he reached out to ruffle Lucas's hair. "I'd like that very much, Lucas," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Lucas beamed, his small face lighting up with happiness. "Okay, Daddy." Emma wiped away a tear, her heart full. She had spent so long trying to protect Lucas, but now she realized that letting Alex in was the best thing she could have done for her son. One evening, after Lucas had gone to bed, Alex and Emma sat on the couch, the soft glow of the lamp casting a warm light over the room. "Emma," Alex began, his voice hesitant, "I know we've been through a lot, and I know I've missed so much, but I want to make it right. I want to be here for you and Lucas for the rest of my life." Emma looked at him, her heart pounding. "Alex, you don't have to." "I'm not saying this because I feel obligated," Alex interrupted, his voice firm. "I'm saying this because I love you, Emma. I've loved you since the moment I met you, and I never stopped. I want us to be a family." Tears filled Emma's eyes as she listened to his words. She had spent so many years building walls around her heart, but Alex had broken through them with his kindness, his patience, and his love. "I love you too, Alex," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I always have." Alex reached for her hand, his eyes shining with emotion. "Then let's do this together. No more secrets, no more fear. Just us." Emma nodded, a smile breaking through her tears. "Just us." A few months later, Emma, Alex, and Lucas stood in the backyard of Alex's home, surrounded by friends and family. It was a small, intimate gathering to celebrate their new beginning as a family. Lucas ran around the yard, laughing as he played with the other children. Emma watched him, her heart full of gratitude. Alex came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "He's happy," he said softly. Emma leaned into him, a smile on her face. "We all are." As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the yard, Alex knelt down in front of Emma, pulling a small box from his pocket. "Emma Collins," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "You've given me the greatest gift I could ever ask for a son, a family, and a second chance at love. Will you marry me?" Emma gasped, tears streaming down her face as she nodded. "Yes, Alex, 1,000 times yes." Lucas ran over, his face lighting up when he saw the ring. "Mommy, are we going to be a real family now?" Emma scooped him up, holding him close. "We already are, sweetheart." Alex pulled them both into his arms, his heart full. For the first time in years, everything felt right. They had faced their fears, overcome their past, and found their way back to each other. And now, they were ready to start their new life together. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey of love, resilience, and second chances. Emma, Alex, and Lucas's story reminds us that no matter how difficult life gets, love and family have the power to heal and bring us together. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this one. Let us know in the comments what you thought about their journey. Your support means the world to us. Stay tuned for more stories that celebrate the beauty of life, love, and the strength of the human spirit. See you in the next video.